Hello, this is Amanda Cleland, and we are continuing today in Chapter 10, Marketing Channels. And this is part 3 of our series on Chapter 10, Marketing Channels. So let's begin and continue where we left off. So the next thing we're going to talk about in Chapter 10 is channel management decisions. So we've got to manage our channel, and channel management calls for things like selecting the channel members who's going to be in our channel, managing these channel members, motivating them, and evaluating channel member performance over time. So these are really important things that we need to do within our marketing channel. And the management of the channel entails all these types of things. So let's start with the first one, selecting channel members. So a lot of producers, a lot of manufacturers are going to really vary in their ability to attract really qualified marketing intermediaries. Obviously, we'd prefer to have the best or the ones that we deem are the most qualified, but that's not going to mean that we're actually going to get them to be part of our channel. So when we are selecting our channel intermediaries, the company should determine what characteristics are the most important to them. A company is going to want to evaluate each channel member's how many years that they've been in business, what kind of other product lines or service lines do they have, where are their products carried, the locations that they're located in, their growth, how much profits that they've been able to make, how cooperative they are with other channel members, and just their general reputation. So we've got to look at all these different factors of potential channel members, and we've got to deem which ones are the most important to us as a company. And some producers really have no trouble whatsoever signing up new channel members. So when Toyota first introduced its Lexus line to the US in 1989, again, Toyota wanted to get into more of the luxury car business. So they started a new line called Lexus. Because Toyota had such a great reputation as it was, they really had no trouble attracting new dealers for Lexus. They actually had to turn down a lot of different resellers. So Lexus and Toyota had no problem signing up channel members. However, other producers really have to work hard to line up really qualified intermediaries, especially if they're new to the market. They don't have years of reputation behind them. They don't have a track record of building really strong candidates. So let's talk about Timex as being one of these producers that had a tougher time. So Timex first tried to sell their very inexpensive, I don't want to say cheap, but they were very affordable. They were very affordable watches for the everyday person. They tried to sell them through regular jewelry stores, and this was in earlier 1900s. And most jewelry stores refused to carry them. They only wanted to really sell higher end types of watches. And they said, this is not what we want to sign up with. We don't want to work with you, Timex. So Timex finally managed to get its watches into mass merchandise outlets. Think Sears, think Kmart. And this turned out to be a really wise decision because during the mid 1900s, there was a huge rapid growth of mass merchandising. So it ended up being a really good decision, but they had to work a lot harder than other brands have had to line up qualified channel members, qualified intermediaries that would sell their products. So once selected, once we decide which channel members we are going to be using, we've got to manage our channel members. We've got to manage them continuously, and we've got to keep them motivated to be doing their best, right? We don't want them to get complacent. We don't want them to get lazy. We want to make sure that they really have our best interests in mind as well as their own. And this is because we as a company, we not only sell through our intermediaries, but we also sell to them, and we also sell with them. So we're really partnering with them in a lot of different ways. And most companies see their intermediaries as their first line customers and as their partners. So not only are we partnering them, but we're also selling to them. So we really want to concentrate on forging long-term partnerships with our channel members and establishing trust, establishing expertise, and make sure that these are going to be long-lasting, very healthy types of relationships. And then we've got to evaluate our channel members. So just like everything else in life, everything else in business, we've got to actually check to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, measure their performance, and keep them accountable to standards. So we've got to regularly check all of our intermediaries, all of our channel members' performances, and we're probably going to set certain standards. We may have things like sales quotas. How many units are they supposed to be selling? What is the average inventory level? What is the customer delivery time? Is it taking a very short amount of time, which is usually good, or is it taking a very long amount of time? Usually longer is worse. How do they treat damaged and lost goods? Are they damaging a lot of goods? Are they losing a lot of inventory? What is their general cooperation levels with us? Are they cooperating with the kind of ways we want to be promoted as a company? Are they cooperating in the types of training programs that we're offering them? And what is the service to the end customer? We've got to look at all these different things, and we've got to evaluate each of our channel intermediaries against these types of standards. And intermediaries that are performing really well, the ones that are doing really good, selling well, treating customers well, they're delivering quickly, we should be recognizing them and we should be rewarding them for their great performance. And on the other hand, we're going to have the other end of the spectrum. We're going to have those intermediaries that are not doing so well, the intermediaries that are performing poorly. We should first try to help them. We should assist them, perhaps coach them a little bit on how to rectify their performance or improve the quality, or at a last resort, we're going to probably want to replace them. But we don't want to do this right away. Remember, we want to form long-term partnerships. We don't just want to get rid of partners willy-nilly. So we want replacement and getting rid of our intermediaries, our partners, as an absolute last resort once we've tried everything else and really tried to help them. And we also need to be very, very sensitive to the needs of our channel partners. We have to think about things, we have to go into their shoes. So a lot of companies that treat their intermediaries and their partners really poorly risk not only losing the support of those said intermediaries, but also causing a lot of legal problems. So we want to be really careful. Again, we don't just want to get rid of poorly performing intermediaries right away at the drop of a hat. We want to make sure that we're working with them and trying to help them along the way and forging these long-term partnerships. So the next thing we're going to talk about is logistics and supply chain. So we're going to kind of move away from channel intermediaries and talk more about logistics and more supply chain types of topics. So in today's global marketplace, selling a product is sometimes easier than actually getting it to its customers. If you look at a lot of the consumer goods that you purchase, think about your electronics, think about your clothing. If you look on the back, if you look on the tags, a lot of it is not made nearby. A lot of it is not made down the street. It's not even made in this country. It's made oceans away. And think about how much work, how much gas, how much fuel goes into getting that product from a faraway country all the way over to wherever you live and to get it into your hands. Again, sometimes that's a very cumbersome job. So as a company, we've got to decide on the best way to store, the best way to handle, and the best way to move our products and services. We want to make our products and services available to customers in the right assortments, at the very right time, and in the right place. Now, again, we're coming up on Christmas time. Most people don't want a Christmas tree in the middle of July. If we started selling our Christmas trees in July, that is not the right time. If you want a new iPhone and you want it delivered to your front door, that is how you order it. But it ends up at the iPhone store, at the Apple store, in the mall. that is not the right place. You wanted it at your front door. And we also have to make sure it's in the right assortments. We previously talked about Dove soap. Unilever makes millions of bars of Dove soaps at a time. You just want one bar of Dove soap. If someone delivered 1,000,000 bars of Dove soap to your front door, you don't want that. So again, we have to ensure that we have to make our products and services available to customers in the right assortments, at the right time, and in the right place. This is what supply chains are all about. And logistics effectiveness, the ability to move, store, handle all these products and services has a real major impact on both customer satisfaction and our costs as a company. So I'm going to give you a definition of supply chain management from the book. And again, if you look online, if you look in different books, you may see slightly different definitions of supply chain management, but it's all pretty much encompassing the same general concepts. So what supply chain management is, this is managing the upstream and downstream flows of materials, of final goods, and related information among suppliers, the company itself, the resellers, and the final consumers. It's all about managing that entire flow of goods and services. And logistics specifically is the segment of supply chain that's focused on the transportation and storage of goods. Logistics is about how and when you move your products or your raw materials, your components that are going in to make your products. And you'll see at the bottom, I've got a little illustration. And this just kind of shows a very basic, very simplified look at a general supply chain. So if you see over on the left, we've got our suppliers. This is where we are buying our raw materials, our components from. And anything that's inbound logistics, that is coming to us. That is coming in from an outside source, usually our suppliers. And then we've got us as the company. This is where we're going to create our product. And then anything going outbound is moving closer to our final customer. It's going out of our front door and going somewhere else. And then we've got our resellers. This could be a retailer. This could be a distributor. And then we've got our final customer. So this is a very simplified look at just that supply chain management. And all these are just different chains that are all linked together. So we're going to specifically talk about logistics. Remember, the movement, transportation, storage of our goods and services. So logistics activities, these include things like forecasting. It includes information systems. We've got a lot of information that we've got to use in order to properly transport and store things. This includes purchasing and procurement. This includes production planning. How much are we going to make? When are we going to make it? This includes order processing. This includes inventory. How much inventory are we going to have? Where are we going to store it? This includes warehousing. It includes transportation planning. When are we going to ship things out? What mode of transportation are we going to use? We've got to think of all these different things when we're talking about logistics. So why in a class about marketing are we talking about logistics and supply chain? Why are they so important? And the reason is companies can really gain a very, very powerful competitive advantage by using improved logistics. They can provide better service, better products, or lower prices. Amazon is notorious for having fantastic logistics, for things showing up at your front door, same day, next day. They're so good at logistics that has created a competitive advantage for them. The transporting and storing of products, they have made that their competitive advantage. And it's a competitive advantage for a lot of different companies as well. That's how Walmart keeps their prices so low. They keep everything in stock. Again, better customer service and lower prices through logistics. And also, improved logistics can really yield great savings to both companies and customers. As much as 20% of the average product's price, so about 1/5 of whatever you're buying of a normal consumer good, is accounted for by the shipping and transportation alone. Because think about this, a lot of the things are not made down the street from us. They are made miles and miles away, maybe countries away. oceans away. So it takes a lot of money to actually ship and transport this to where you need it, where you're going to buy it. And US companies, just US companies alone, we're not talking the world, they spend $1.39 trillion each year to properly pack and wrap, to bundle, to load, to unload, to sort, to reload, and transport all the goods that they are moving. And if we're shaving off just a little fraction of those logistics costs, that can mean really substantial savings, especially for a really big company. And because we've seen explosions in product variety, this has created a need for improved logistics management. What do I need by explosions in product variety? Well, let's talk about the last 100 years. So 1916, the typical Piggly Wiggly, which is a grocery store chain, they carried only about 605 different items. That's it, 605. That's not a lot of items. And today, a Piggly Wiggly now carries between 20,000 and 35,000 different items. Again, an explosion in the variety and the number of products we've got to store, we've got to move, we've got to transport. And a Walmart Supercenter carries even more than this. So a Walmart Supercenter carries about 150,000 different types of products, unique stock keeping units, SKUs. So if we're ordering, we're shipping, we're stocking, we're controlling this huge variety of products, this really presents a very sizable logistics challenge. So we've really got to be really good at logistics in order to manage just the sheer volume, the sheer number of different products that we've got. And more than any other marketing function, logistics affects the environment, our natural world, our earth, and affirms environmental sustainability efforts. So think about everything that goes into transportation, everything that goes into warehouse, everything that goes into packaging, and all these other logistics functions. These are typically the biggest supply chain contributors to a company's environmental footprint. Think about the fuel that it takes for all the trucks that are on the road, for the trains that are moving, for the boats that are floating across the ocean. Fuel creates a lot of pollution. It's got a big carbon footprint. So a lot of companies are very cognizant of this. And a lot of companies are now trying to develop what they're calling green supply chains, where they're really focused on eliminating waste and minimizing that carbon footprint. This has become very important to a lot of people today, a lot of consumers, a lot of governments. So we want to be very aware of how logistics, how supply chain is going to affect the environment and our general reputation as a company. So let's talk about the major logistics functions. So we've got warehousing, we've got inventory management, we've got logistics information management, and we've got transportation. So what warehousing is? So we all think we know what a warehouse is, right? I've got a great picture of here of typical warehouse, what you picture in your mind when you think of a warehouse. This is the inside of a warehouse. So production and consumption cycles rarely match. So I talked about we're coming up on the Christmas season, right? And you want to buy yourself a little Christmas tree for your dorm room. And probably the company that is making Christmas trees is making them all year round. But again, you don't want a Christmas tree in July. You want a Christmas tree in November, December. So again, these production, what the company is actually creating the Christmas trees versus you as the consumer, your consumption when you want to buy it, these really rarely match. So most companies are going to store their goods while they wait to be stored. This is what warehousing comes in. So this storage function really overcomes the difference in the needed qualities and timing. And it also ensures that products are available when we as customers are ready to buy them. So it's just having things kind of sit around and kind of wait until you're ready to buy them. So a company has to decide on how many and what type of warehouses it needs and where all of these warehouses are going to be located. So these are the important decisions a company needs to make in regards to warehousing. So a company might either use warehouses or distribution centers. So warehouses typically will store goods for moderate to longer periods of time, and distribution centers are really designed to move goods rather than just store them. So goods are moving through distribution centers at a quicker rate. Distribution centers are also usually very large and very highly automated types of warehouses that are really designed to receive goods from perhaps suppliers. They can take orders, they can really fill them efficiently and deliver goods to consumers as soon as possible. So warehouses usually storing things for a little longer, and distribution center, this is a special kind of warehouse where things are moving at a much quicker velocity. They're not sitting on the shelves as long. They want to move goods rather than just have them sit on the shelves. And there's also something called cross docks, which is taking that even further. And some items with cross docks, they may not even enter the doors of the building, or they are going to be within that facility less than 24 hours. And like everything, warehousing has seen a lot of really dramatic changes in technology in recent years. So a lot of outdated material handling types of machinery, equipment, and methods are being really steadily replaced by newer automated systems that require fewer human employees. So we're depending on a lot more robots, a lot more automation. And computers and scanners can read orders, they can direct lift trucks, there's electronic hoists, there's robots that move things around to gather goods and do the sort process. They move them to loading docks, and they can even issue invoices. So we're becoming more and more depending on technology and automation in a lot of our warehousing. And the next thing we're going to talk about is inventory management. So inventory management really affects customer satisfaction. Now, you're probably not thinking about your favorite store, how much inventory they have in their shelves on in their back room. Again, until something goes wrong, until that product that you want is not sitting in inventory. So that's going to affect your customer satisfaction, how a company manages their inventory. So a company has to maintain this really, really, really delicate balance between carrying too little inventory and carrying too much inventory. With too little stock, if you're carrying too little inventory, the company risks not having the products when a customer wants to buy. And the shelf is empty and the product that you want is out of stock. We don't want that. However, on the other end of the spectrum, if we carry too much inventory, that's going to result in really high inventory carrying costs. We've got to pay for somewhere for that item to sit. We've got to pay for the security to make sure it's safe. We've got to the item could go obsolete, or if it's like a perishable type of good, it could go bad. So we don't want to carry too much inventory. So it's a really delicate balance we've got to strike here with inventory management. And marketers are always looking for new ways to make inventory management more efficient. So a lot of companies have started using RFID or smart tag technology, where there's really small transmitter chips that are embedded in or maybe on a product or on the packaging or on shipping pallets. And these smart tags can make the entire supply chain a little bit more intelligent and automated. So we don't have to go in and scan every barcode. You may just be able to walk by with the scanner and figure out how much inventory you have. So there's a move right now towards more RFID technology. And let's talk about now logistics information management. So companies are managing their supply chains through information. Information is a huge piece of supply chain, and channel partners often link up to share the information and make better joint decisions together. All these decisions that they've got to make about logistics. And from a logistics perspective, the flows of information are very closely linked to channel performance. The better you are at sharing information among all of your partners, the better your channel is going to perform. So information like customer transaction, like the billing, like the shipment, like inventory levels, like all of that customer data, the better that you're sharing this within a company and within all of the different channel partners in a supply chain, the better your channel is going to perform. So ensuring that information is flowing and you're managing it well is imperative to good performance. Now let's talk about transportation. So the choice of transportation carriers affects the pricing of the products, the delivery of the delivery condition, how it's going to arrive, and the performance. So all of these are going to affect customer satisfaction at the end of the day. So let's talk about the 5 primary modes of transportation we could use when we're transporting our products. So we could use truck or motor, we could use rail, we could use water, we could use pipeline, and we could use air. So let's talk about the 5 primary modes of transportation. Let's break down each of these. So trucks. So trucks have really increased their share of transportation kind of steadily now, ever since probably about the mid 1900s. It used to be rail was the primary mode of transportation, especially in the US, but trucks, motor has steadily taken over. Motor now accounts for 64% of total tons transported within the US, and trucks are very highly flexible in their routing and time schedules. So they could move up an hour, they could move back an hour, they can change routes very easily, and they usually offer faster and more universal services than other transportation modes like railroads. Again, they can go anywhere. You don't need railroad tracks that go right up to your factory, right to the back of the Walmart. There are pretty much roads that go everywhere in this modern world. And they are really efficient for short hauls of high value merchandise. So if you have really expensive items, you have a whole container worth of the newest iPhones, and that only needs to go 50 to 100 miles, truck is going to be your best mode of transportation for that. And then railroads. So railroads account, believe it or not, for 10% of total tons shipped in the United States. I'll caveat this when I'm talking about, when I'm giving you these figures, this is based on domestically within the United States. So we still use a decent amount of railroad transportation when we're looking at sheer tons of product shipped. And railroad is really one of the most cost-effective modes for shipping a large amount of bulk products. So think of things like coal, like sand, like minerals, like agricultural products or forest products. Think of loggers. When you've got to haul these big, heavy, bulky products, very long distances. Railroad is one of the most cost-effective modes for shipping these types of products. Again, usually it's going to be a rougher ride than if you're riding in a motor carrier or a truck, but it doesn't matter because you don't have to worry about these types of things getting broken or packaging breaking because they're bulky. They can handle that type of transportation. So it's a lot more cost-effective to move these bulk products via rail versus other modes of transportation, especially over longer distances. And then we've got our water carriers. So these account for 4% of goods transported in the United States if we're looking at the sheer weight, the total tonnage. So usually, and water carriers are very important when it comes to international transport. So usually domestically, we're going to transport large amounts of goods by ships or barges, usually on coastal and inland waterways. And again, very similar to railroad, they're really good for shipping bulky, low valuable, non-perishable items. So think sand, coal, grain, oil, very similar to what we saw in rail. And the cost of water transportation is very, very low. So it's really cost effective. However, the downside of water transportation is that it's really, really slow. It is the slowest mode of all the transportation methods and is very easily affected by water. Or excuse me, not by water. They're traveling by water. It's most easily affected by weather, by weather. So if there's a big storm that's coming in, there could be a huge delay in the delivery of your products. And then we've got pipeline. So pipeline is usually the one that most people don't think about, probably because it's usually invisible to us. But pipelines actually account for 18% of total tonnage transported domestically within the United States. And pipelines are really specialized means of shipping liquid types of products like petroleum, natural gas, coal, chemicals from sources to actual markets where they're going to be used. And most pipelines are used by their owners to ship their own products. So you're only going to see liquids being transported via pipelines. And again, biggest thing is usually petroleum, natural gas, coal, chemicals, anything that's liquid. And just to give you an example of just looking at how many pipelines in the United States we have. Again, we as normal everyday citizens, normal consumers, we don't think of pipeline as one of the main modes of product transportation because usually it's underground. Usually we don't see it. It's invisible to us. But there are pipelines everywhere. And this is not a full picture of every single type of pipeline. This is only for certain kinds of pipelines. So there's even more pipelines that you're seeing that you're not seeing on this map itself. And then we've got air. So air carriers transport less than 1% of US goods. So not a lot of things are traveling by air. And this is because air freight rates are significantly higher than that of rail, truck, or water. Air is very, very expensive compared to the other modes of transportation. However, it is ideal when we need things to move really quickly, when speed is of the essence, or really distant markets have to be reached in a very quick amount of time. So usually things that are going by air are things like perishables, things that are going to go bad really quickly. So fresh fish, fresh cut flowers, these are going to travel via an airplane, and really high value, low bulk types of items that are very expensive. So think of like technical instruments, jewelry, things like this. But again, air is not used very often in transportation because of how expensive it is. It is very, very expensive, but it is also very, very fast. And intermodal transportation. This is very commonly used within supply chain. This is when you are going to combine two or more modes of transportation. So shippers frequently use intermodal transportation so much that the different types have nicknames. So when you use rail and truck together, that's called piggyback. When you use water and truck together, that's called fishyback. When you use water and rail together, that's called train ship. When you use air and trucks together, that's called air truck. So they even have their own little unique little nicknames because of how often they are used. And the reason why we're talking about intermodal transportation is because it combines the different modes of transportation, and it provides those advantages that no one single mode can deliver. This is very common, especially with international trade. You are going to be using intermodal transportation. You are going to be combining two or more modes of transportation. Especially if you're buying internationally, you are probably going to be using both water and a motor. So you're going to see fishyback quite a lot, especially when trading internationally. And that is it for chapter 10. We will continue with chapter 11, and I will see you soon. Thank you all so much.